Her name was Priya Sharma. She was 36 years old. She worked as a senior investigator at the Chicago Financial Crimes Unit. Chicago is one of the most famous cities in America. It sits on the shore of Lake Michigan. It is known for its tall buildings, its deep dish pizza, and its cold, powerful wind. Priya loved Chicago. She had lived there for 11 years. She was sharp. She was focused. She was known in her office as someone who never missed a detail. On a cold Monday morning in February, Priya arrived at her office at 7:30. Earlier than everyone else. As always, she made her coffee. She sat at her desk. She opened her computer. And then she stopped. Something was wrong. Her most important file, the one she had been building for 8 months, was gone, not moved, not renamed, gone. The file was called Project Nightfall. It contained evidence against a powerful man named Gerald Holt. Gerald Holt was the CEO of Holt Financial Group. For 8 months, Priya had been quietly building a case. She had documents, she had records, she had witness statements, and now all of it was gone. She checked her backup drive, empty. She checked the department server. The folder existed, but it was completely empty inside. She sat back in her chair. She crossed her arms. She stared at the screen. In her mind, one word appeared: inside job. Someone inside her own office had deleted Project Nightfall. Someone who knew what the file contained. Someone who wanted to protect Gerald Holt. Priya did not panic. Instead, she opened a new blank document. And she wrote 3 words at the top. Who, what, why, she was going to find out. By 9 o'clock, the rest of the office had arrived. Priya watched everyone carefully. She did not say anything about the missing file, not yet. There were 7 other people in her unit. First, there was her supervisor, Director Alan Webb. He was 55 years old, tall, serious, always wore gray suits. Second, there was her colleague, Officer Jamie Torres. Jamie was young, 28 years old. Smart, eager, always trying to impress. Third, there was the IT specialist, a quiet man named Kevin Park. Kevin managed all the computer systems. He barely spoke. He only communicated through his screens. The others were analysts and support staff. Priya thought about who had access to Project Nightfall. Only 3 people had access to that file. Herself, Director Webb, and Kevin Park. Who had IT access to everything? She looked at Kevin. He was sitting at his desk in the corner, headphones on, eyes on his screen. Not looking at anyone, she looked at Director Webb. He was on the phone in his glass office. His back was turned. His voice was low. Priya noticed something. Director Webb was usually loud on the phone. He laughed, he joked, he used big gestures, but today, he was almost whispering. Priya made a mental note. She went to get more coffee. On her way back, she walked slowly past Webb's office. Through the glass, she saw something on his desk. A yellow sticky note with a phone number written on it. She memorized it in one glance. Then she walked back to her desk. She wrote the number down quietly. She ran the number through the system. The result came back in 30 seconds. The number belonged to Holt Financial Group. Priya felt a cold feeling move through her. But her face showed nothing. She was a professional. And professionals do not show their hand too early. At lunchtime, most of the office went out to eat. Priya stayed behind. She said she had reports to finish. When the office was quiet, she walked to the IT room. Kevin Park was still there. He never went out for lunch. He always ate at his desk. A sandwich from the same deli every day. Priya knocked on the open door. Kevin looked up. He pulled one headphone off. He said, "Hey Priya." She said, "Hey Kevin." Can I ask you something technical? Kevin nodded. Sure. Priya sat in the empty chair across from him. She spoke casually, like it was not important. She said, if a file disappeared from the server, is there any way to track who deleted it? Kevin thought for a moment. He said, depends. If someone deleted it normally, yes, there would be a log. But if someone used admin access, they could erase the log too, Priya said. Who has admin access in this office? Kevin paused just for 1 second, but Priya noticed it. He said, me and Director Webb. Priya nodded slowly. Thanks, Kevin. Just curious. She stood up and left in the hallway. She stopped and leaned against the wall. She thought about Kevin's 1-second pause. Was it nervousness? Was it guilt? Or was it simply surprise at the question? In investigation work, a pause can mean many things. Or it can mean nothing at all. You must never jump to conclusions. Priya needed more information before she accused anyone. Before she moved at all, she needed proof. That evening, Priya stayed in the office until 8 o'clock. Everyone else had gone home. The building was empty. The lights in most rooms were off. Only her desk lamp was on. She went to the server room. She had her own key card. She went inside. She connected her personal laptop to the system. She was not supposed to do this. It was technically against protocol. But she was not going to wait. She began searching through the system logs. Deep in the archive files, most of the logs had been erased. Just as Kevin had predicted, but Priya knew something most people did not. When you delete a file from a computer, it is not always truly gone. There are traces, like footprints in snow. She used a recovery tool on her laptop. She searched for 2 hours. Her eyes were tired. Her coffee was cold. Then, at 9:10, something appeared on her screen. A fragment. It was not the full file. But it was enough, a partial log entry. From the previous Saturday night, at 11:47 p.m. The entry showed that Project Nightfall had been accessed, and then deleted, and next to the entry, there was a user ID. The ID was AW047. Priya stared at those letters. Ellen Webb, her supervisor. She sat very still for a long moment. Then she closed her laptop. She walked out of the server room. She took the elevator down. She walked out of the building into the cold Chicago night. The wind hit her face immediately. She stood on the sidewalk, cars moving past, city lights reflecting on the wet street. She had her evidence, but she could not use it yet, because she had obtained it illegally. If she went to her bosses now, they would ask how she found it. And she would have to tell the truth. She needed to find another way. A legal way. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking. She needed to think. Priya had one person she trusted completely. His name was Frank DeLuca. He was a retired FBI agent. Frank was 60 years old. He had worked financial crime cases for 30 years. He had seen everything. He was also Priya's mentor. Priya called Frank at 9:30 at night. He answered on the second ring. Sharma, talk to me. Frank always answered this way. No hello, no small talk, just talk to me. Priya told him everything, the missing file, the phone number on Webb's desk, the log fragment, the user ID. Frank listened without interrupting. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then Frank said, You know you can't use that log fragment. Priya said, I know, Frank said. So you need to build the case from the outside in. Frank continued, Holt Financial Group. I know that company. 3 years ago, we looked at them, nothing stuck. Nothing stuck, important idiom. Nothing stuck if nothing could be proven. No charges were made. But there was one person who tried to help us. An accountant. She got scared and pulled back. But she may be willing to talk now. Priya said, "Can you get me her name?" Frank said, "Give me 24 hours. And Priya, be careful. If Webb is involved, you are not safe in that office." Priya said, "I know, I'll watch my back." She hung up. She sat in her car outside the office building. The wind rocked the car slightly. She thought about Alan Webb, a man she had worked with for 6 years, a man she had trusted. She felt angry, but she pushed the anger down. Emotion was a luxury she could not afford right now. She needed a clear head. 24 hours later, Frank sent Priya a name, Diana Cole, former senior accountant at Holt Financial Group. Now living in Evanston, Illinois, Priya drove to Evanston on her lunch break. She found Diana's address, a quiet apartment building near the lake. She knocked on the door. A woman opened it. She was in her mid-40s, short hair, cautious eyes. She said, "Can I help you?" Priya showed her badge. She said, "My name is Priya Sharma. I am an investigator with the Chicago Financial Crimes Unit. I am not here to cause you trouble. I just need 15 minutes. Diana looked at her for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." They sat at Diana's kitchen table. Diana made tea without asking. She said, "Can I help you?" Priya showed her badge. She said, "My name is Priya Sharma. I am an investigator with the Chicago Financial Crimes Unit. I am not here to cause you trouble. I just need 15 minutes. Diana looked at her for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." They sat at Diana's kitchen table. Diana made tea without asking. Priya said, "I know you spoke to the FBI 3 years ago about Holt Financial Group." Diana wrapped her hands around her teacup. She said nothing. Priya continued, "I have been building a case against Gerald Holt. 8 months of work. Last weekend, someone inside my office deleted everything. A person who was contacted by Holt's company." Diana looked up. Priya said, "I need to start again. And I need your help." Diana said, "Last time, I was threatened. Someone called my home phone. They knew my daughter's school. They knew my mother's address, so I stopped." Priya said quietly, "I understand. What they did to you was wrong. And I will not pressure you." There was a long silence. Then Diana said, "What do you need?" Priya said, "Whatever you remember. Names, numbers, dates, anything." Diana stood up. She went to a bookshelf in the living room. She pulled out a thick book, the complete works of Shakespeare. She opened it. Inside, the pages had been cut out. And in the hollow space, there was a USB drive. Diana placed it on the table. She said, "I made a copy of everything before I left Holt. Every fraudulent transaction. Every false report. 3 years of evidence." Priya looked at the USB drive. She said, "Diana, this is very brave." Diana said, "No, this is just late. I should have done this 3 years ago." A person who shares evidence about wrongdoing, especially from inside an organization. Priya picked up the USB drive. She said, "I will make sure you are protected. You have my word." Priya drove back to Chicago. She had the USB drive in her jacket pocket. She did not go back to the office. Instead, she called Frank again. She said, "I have the evidence, but I need to present it carefully. If I go through my office, Webb will know. And he will warn Holt." Frank said, "Then go above Webb. Go directly to the deputy commissioner. His name is Raymond Chen. I know him personally. He is clean. I will call him tonight. You come in tomorrow morning. Bring everything." Priya said, "What about Webb?" "He will see me walk into Chen's office." Frank thought for a moment. Then he said, "Then let him see. Let him sweat." Priya smiled slightly. I like that. That night, she went home. She made dinner. She sat at her kitchen table. She looked at the USB drive. 3 years of someone's courage, sitting in a hollow book. Waiting for the right moment. Diana had been afraid. But she had kept the evidence. She had not destroyed it, even when she was threatened. Even when she was scared. That was strength. Priya went to bed at 11. She set her alarm for 5:30. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. The next morning, Priya arrived at the government building at 7 a.m. Not her office building, the main city government building. 3 blocks away, Frank was already there, waiting in the lobby. He handed her a coffee. He said, "Ready?" She said, "Ready." They took the elevator to the 14th floor. Deputy Commissioner Raymond Chen was a small, precise man. 60 years old, neat gray hair, reading glasses on the end of his nose. He stood when they entered. He shook Priya's hand firmly. He said, "Frank tells me you have something important." Priya said, "Yes, sir. I have evidence of financial fraud committed by Gerald Holt of Holt Financial Group. And I have evidence that someone inside my unit attempted to destroy the investigation." Chen looked at her seriously. He said, "Who inside your unit?" Priya said, "Director Alan Webb." The room was quiet. Chen removed his glasses. He cleaned them slowly. This was his habit when he was thinking. Then he said, "Show me everything." Priya opened her laptop. She plugged in the USB drive. For the next 90 minutes, she walked Chen through every piece of evidence. The fraudulent transactions from Diana's files. The phone number connecting Webb to Holt Financial Group. The log fragment showing Webb's user ID. Even the log fragment, she was honest about how she found it. Chen listened to everything. He asked sharp questions. He took detailed notes. At the end, he sat back in his chair. He said, "The log fragment will not be admissible." "I know," said Priya, "but the rest is." Chen nodded slowly. He said, "I am going to contact the FBI directly. This is bigger than your unit. Webb will be suspended immediately. And we will open a full investigation into Holt." Priya said, "There is also a witness, Diana Cole. She will need protection." Chen said, "She will have it. You have my word." Priya nodded. As she stood to leave, Chen said, "Investigator Sharma." She turned. He said, "You did the right thing, and you did it the right way. That is harder than most people know." 3 days later, Priya was at her desk. It was a Thursday morning. The office was normal. People typing, phones ringing, coffee brewing. Director Webb was in his office. On the phone, as usual, at 10 o'clock exactly. The elevator doors opened. 4 people walked in. 2 men, 2 women, all in dark suits, all showing FBI badges. The office went completely silent. One of the agents walked directly to Webb's glass office. She knocked once. She opened the door. She said, "Director Alan Webb, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." Webb stood up. His face went pale. He looked across the office. His eyes found Priya. She did not look away. The agents handcuffed Webb. They walked him out of the office, past all his colleagues, into the elevator. The doors closed. Everyone in the office was frozen. Then Jamie Torres turned to Priya. He said, "Did you know about this?" Priya picked up her coffee cup. She took a slow sip. She said, "I had a feeling." 2 weeks later, Gerald Holt was also arrested. The charges were serious: wire fraud, securities fraud, bribery. The case made national news. Reporters stood outside Holt's office building. Cameras flashing, questions being shouted. Priya watched it on the news in her apartment that evening. Her phone buzzed. A message from Diana Cole. It said, "Thank you, for the first time in 3 years. I feel like I can breathe." Priya typed back, "You did the hard part. You kept the evidence. You were brave enough to share it. That is what made this possible." 1 month later, Priya sat in her office. The same desk, the same window, the same view of Chicago, but everything felt different. There was a new supervisor. A woman named Director Gloria Park, sharp, fair, trustworthy. The team felt different too, more open, more honest, less afraid. Jamie Torres knocked on Priya's door. He said, "Hey, I just wanted to say something." Priya said, "Go ahead," Jamie said. "I knew something was wrong with Webb for a long time. But I didn't say anything. I was afraid of losing my job." He paused. "You weren't afraid. Or maybe you were, but you did it anyway." "I want to be more like that." Priya looked at him. She said, "I was afraid. I was very afraid. But someone once told me something." She paused. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing the right thing, even when you are afraid." Jamie nodded slowly. He said, "I'll remember that." He walked out. Priya turned back to her screen. She opened a new file. She named it. And she began to type, "A new case, a new investigation, a new beginning." Outside her window, Chicago was alive, tall buildings reaching into the gray sky, traffic moving far below, the wind pushing through the streets. Cold and strong, just like the city, just like her. Wonderful work following this mystery story. Let us review every vocabulary word we learned today. Repeat each word clearly after me. Investigator gives a person who examines facts to find the truth. Detail gives a small but important piece of information. Evidence gives information that proves something is true. CEO gives chief executive officer, the highest leader of a company. Witness statement gives a written account of what someone saw or heard. PANIC gives sudden strong fear that prevents clear thinking. Supervisor gives a person who manages and watches over others' work. Colleague gives a person you work with. IT specialist gives a person who manages computer systems. Analyst gives a person who carefully examines information. Access gives the right or ability to use something. Gesture gives a movement of the hand or body to express an idea. Log gives a digital record of actions on a computer. Admin access gives highest level of computer permission. Investigation gives the process of examining facts to discover truth. Server room gives a secure room containing computers that store data. Keycard gives a plastic card used to open electronic locks. Protocol gives an official set of rules about how to do something. Archive gives a collection of stored records from the past. Traces gives small signs left behind by something that has passed. Recovery tool gives software used to restore deleted files. Fragment gives a small broken piece of something larger. User ID gives a unique code identifying a specific person on a system. Obtained gives received or got something through effort. FBI gives Federal Bureau of Investigation, America's national law enforcement agency. Mentor gives an experienced person who guides someone less experienced. Navigate gives to find your way through a difficult situation. Accountant gives a professional who manages financial records. Badge gives an official card or piece showing your authority. Cautious gives careful about avoiding danger or problems. Hospitable gives friendly and welcoming to guests. Threatened gives told something bad will happen if you don't comply. Fraudulent gives dishonest, done through deception for illegal gain. Whistleblower gives a person who reports illegal activity within an organization. USB drive gives a small device used to store and transfer computer files. Deputy Commissioner gives a senior official second in command of a department. Precise gives very exact and careful with details. FRAUD gives the crime of deceiving people for financial gain. Admissible gives allowed to be used as evidence in a legal case. Suspended gives temporarily removed from a job during an investigation. Obstruction of justice gives the crime of blocking a legal investigation. Conspiracy gives a secret illegal plan made by a group of people. Pale gives losing color in the face from shock or fear. Frozen gives unable to move because of shock or surprise. Bribery gives offering money or gifts to influence someone's actions. National news gives stories reported across an entire country. Trustworthy gives able to be relied on as honest and truthful. Courage gives the ability to do the right thing even when afraid. Despite gives even though, in spite of something. Now let us review every idiom and expression. The Windy City gives nickname for Chicago, Illinois. Inside job gives a crime committed by someone within the same organization. Play it close to the chest gives keep your plans and knowledge secret. Make a mental note gives remember something in your mind without writing it. Show your hand gives reveal your plans or feelings too early. Jump to conclusions gives make a judgment before knowing all the facts. Build from the outside in gives gather accessible evidence first, then go deeper. Nothing stuck gives nothing could be proven. No charges were made. Watch your back gives be careful because someone may try to harm you. Clean gives not involved in any illegal or dishonest activity. Let someone sweat gives let a guilty person feel nervous without revealing what you know. I had a feeling gives I suspected or sensed something was true. I can finally breathe gives to feel great relief after a long period of fear or stress. After the storm gives the calm period following a difficult time. That was the story of Priya Sharma, an investigator who lost everything she built and built it again. A woman who was threatened by a broken system and refused to break with it. There is something important in this story. Doing the right thing is not always easy. Sometimes the right thing costs something, your comfort, your safety, your sense of security. But when you do it anyway, something important happens. You become someone you respect. And that is worth more than comfort, worth more than safety, worth more than anything. Thank you for watching Voice Vocabulary. If this story helped your English, please like this video, share it with someone learning English, and subscribe so you never miss a new story. Keep going. You've got this.